Costing $40 million.
The other two not coming? Or you don't know? Nobody talked to him? Sharon?
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sharon, did you talk to either Doug or Tammy? You know if they're coming or not?
Nobody said anything to me. So I don't know.
Alright. Do we have to do the roll call and all that since it's reconvened, or?
I think you should.
Okay.
As
Alright.
you're creating a written record, you want it to be.
Called the meeting to order, right? It's now 6:04. Did the Pledge of Allegiance. Everything in here is being recorded. Everything in here is being recorded. Alright, roll call.
Ed,
Yep.
Tom,
Yep.
Tammy, Kathy,
Yes.
Doug,
Okay. We have a whole new agenda. Public participation on agenda items. Motion to pay the bills, I'm assuming that came in after the last time we were.
yeah. Bill, well, your next meeting is not until the 21st, and all the bills that are coming in will be due before the 21st, so I have that many ready for tonight.
And that's, well, we pay the reoccurring ones anyway, yeah.
There's like 5 or 6 on there, not a lot.
Yeah, they're all
Anything controversial?
Oil change.
What is it?
The oil change?
Oil change.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. West Tire.
Tires. The bill for the new weed whacker. I think that's it.
Okay.
Oh, and Lagonda machine, we needed parts. John Forrest needed something
Water?
for the water, for the sewage treatment plant, so.
That's out of their account.
Yep. That'd be it.
Okay, we need a motion.
Make a motion to pay the bills?
Need a second.
I'll second
Discussion, questions. How do you vote?
Tom,
it. Yep.
Kathy,
Yes.
Ed,
Yeah. Alright, new business, October 31st is trick or treat.
Oh.
motion carried, I
Oh.
forgot.
October 31st is trick or treat, that's when Claysville's is?
Yes, 6 PM.
6 o'clock.
Yes. 6 to 7.
How's it going?
Hey, for me?
Valley View logging refund their escrow.
That was first day already.
Oh, they're done?
Yep. Yes.
Did, somebody look at the road?
Rich Rush, so he was on vacation, but he came back and it was supposed to be yesterday, but we haven't confirmed it, we'll just hold the check till we get confirmation that he's checked it. But this way he can go ahead and get his money.
How about if
You
we,
checked it the first time.
if I
Which
make,
one?
how about if I make a
Oh, okay.
motion, we return it pending,
Receive it.
engineer's
Report.
approval? Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
that's my motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions? How do you vote?
Allergies
Kathy?
are cold.
Yes.
Allergies.
Tom?
Me too.
Yep.
Sucks though.
Yeah.
I was actually doing
Yes,
good until I
motion
think I
carried.
drove by somebody with it.
Okay,
And it got me.
now to the real reason we extended, yes.
Just real quick, I'm not really sure where I need to go with this, but I have a property in the township that's, the property owners allow garbage to accumulate. They've been served with letters, they've been fined. they're not even at the house anymore, but I mean, you can smell it from the street. I'm gonna go ahead and secure a search warrant for the purposes of going in and removing the garbage that's been accumulated around the house. I'm gonna have to have somebody haul that out, Bex or somebody. That's gonna incur cost. Do I need pre-approval of the board to do something like that, or at least a nod?
Yeah, I would,
Have they paid any fines yet, or no?
No, not recently. No, in fact, we can't even contact the property owner. I mean, at this point, I mean, we can figure out what's going on later.
Yeah.
And let's say that by some fluke, it's some
how
sort of health
much
concern.
are we talking about?
We're probably talking about, a big pickup truck to a small dump truck worth at the most.
So, if you could coordinate with Bex and they could have their truck there and we could,
Yeah, I'd get the search warrant, we'd get down, get a couple shovels and just throw what we need to and get it out of there.
yeah.
How about an estimated amount and
Yeah.
approve it not to exceed?
I'd have to call, I haven't gone
Yeah,
that far.
to find out from Bex what it would cost.
We're gonna pass it on if we ever catch up with them.
If we can, yeah, absolutely. So, but I mean, it's affecting neighboring
Neighbors,
properties.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Need
Okay.
something done.
How much is a small dumpster?
Like for a month?
Oh, no.
I think it was like
Per
3 or
day, I
4
mean, I could
days.
have something to go on to ask for.
I'm gonna
It's
guess-
usually I pay for mine by the month, that's why I was,
That's why we were, I wouldn't think it would cost more than $300.
yeah.
When I had
They
the
just
15-yarder from Bex, it cost me $350 to fill it up. It was a 15-yard dumpster.
$500 maximum.
Not to exceed.
Question
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
or suggestion or
Go
two
ahead.
things. Are you talking about just having like the township employees pick it up and don't we
No,
already,
he
don't we
was-
already have a
I
dumpster
would-
or
I
having
would
somebody?
just go to-
I don't know, since we don't know what's in it, I don't know that you wanna subject employees to,
I don't know that it would fall within their contract. I
Or
think
just like have Bex pick it up
They
yourself?
Yeah.
show
Okay.
up there and.
Yeah, but what
I'd
about
help
your
them.
safety also?
yeah.
You don't know
I've
what's in
taken
there.
trash out before.
No, but, I mean, you don't know what's in there.
No,
Don't let his wife hear
No,
that.
I'm not being smart, I know you're not, it just, I don't wanna cause any, if any employees need involved, it'll be from my department. And we'll take
I
whatever
was
the
just wondering about
cost
something in
is.
there,
I know
you
what
get
you're
sick
saying,
or, you
I
know.
know what you're saying.
What
I don't wanna put it on somebody else though, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
What I was getting at, if you have like Bex or somebody bring a dumpster, that's one thing, throw it in. Otherwise, if you just.
They're
get a
just gonna
dump
bring a
throw
truck
it in,
by, and we're gonna
then
just
it-
load it in the truck.
Well, then it goes by the tonnage. If you call what's the
Yeah.
dump down over the hill?
Short Creek.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah,
and
it
they're
goes
cheap,
by
then they'll just go by the
pound,
tonnage.
ton, or
you know what I mean?
whatever. Yeah,
And
so
that's pretty
they
cheap.
weigh it in, weigh it out.
So I'm good up to,
Yeah, I would say $500.
Yeah,
that should
probably,
more than cover. If
Yeah.
not,
probably
I'll
wouldn't be
truck.
$100
Yeah.
down there.
All right.
Well,
Probably
Bex are gonna
less than-
charge you something though.
Yeah, Bex is gonna charge you to haul it and pick it up and all that there.
Even just to break their schedule and come out and meet me,
Yeah.
it's gonna cost something.
Right.
Okay, so I'll make a motion, we give the chief up to $500 allowance for,
Not to exceed 500.
Not to exceed 500. I'll second
we appreciate the
it, yeah.
work.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's not fun, it's not fun.
No.
Got a motion and a second, any discussion? How do you vote?
Tom,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Ed,
Yeah.
3 yes, motion carried.
Thank you.
All right, now. That's all the business type
I
stuff?
think so.
Yeah. What about the truck thing? Did she come today?
Yes.
And I'm getting into that now. She left me, I actually left it on the computer. I'm not gonna go out of this site until I'm
Yeah.
done.
Okay.
But she said to go with 3 or 4 different ones and kind of see who can give you the better deal. So I've got 3 or 4 picked out and I'll
She
see
said,
who's gonna give me the better deal.
basically call and even if they're closed, ask them if they'll extend warranty or something like that so that we can pit them against each other maybe.
Yeah,
Oh,
be like a war.
get a bidding war.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right, so then the next thing is to go through this subdivision and land development ordinance. I don't know how you wanna do it.
So,
Everybody got copies?
I've got the ordinance, the code.
Everybody got copies? Okay, you got copies? I can take it.
No, that's the agenda.
No,
Oh,
it's his part. Do
Oh,
You
it's
have
right
one,
here?
Ed?
Yeah, no, I was
do
asking,
we want
anybody want out there want copies?
4 or 5
Does
copies?
anybody want?
Well, if you got an extra copy,
It's got the,
thank you.
so,
And make more.
Do you want some more or no?
you
If
know.
you don't mind
Harold,
my asking, hang on one second. New faces, are you here
That's
for a
what we're
reason
just getting
before?
ready to introduce.
Yeah.
He was just getting
These
ready.
are our building code officials.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and Pete and Harold, and they were kind enough to just come, because as we may or may not see tonight, this needs to interact with the building code and with other statute and other ordinances, and they're here to provide information if you guys need it, and any insight from experiences they have. So basically, the first thing that comes up, well, okay, so background. We don't have a code enforcement officer, I've been doing code enforcement. So one of the things that's come up is your saldo, our saldo. And the more experiences we have with it, the more I'm realizing that there are some problems with it. The first and the biggest problem is the fact that it invests, in the very beginning of this, it invests the authority in the planning commission. And there are different parts of this that, okay, so if I fall under land development and I come to the township and say, hey, look, I want you to do a walkthrough with this with me, I need some consultation on this. By our own ordinance, we're required to provide that. We have no resource for that. We have no planning officer, we have no planning commission, we have nobody that they can come to and say, well, what do I need to be looking at? When our own ordinance provides for it.
Later on.
Yes.
It says, it points and says in the language that the applicant is to be referred to the planning commission. So actually, the verbiage says planning commission, and if you guys don't have one, that's fine, you don't want one, that's fine, but that verbiage then needs to be changed. So it's like
Yeah,
little things like that that's
looking at-
causing us problems that are,
110-3, it says the planning commission shall have jurisdiction.
I think the first thing the board needs to decide is what its position is on this. In other words, you know, and I'm not pretending to know what anybody wants, but do we want to maintain, do we want to keep this out? If we do, what do we want to change in this? You know, is this something, do we want to get rid of this option altogether? Do we want to keep it? I think it's in there for a reason. If you read like the municipal, Pennsylvania Municipal Planning Codes manual and stuff, there are different options, but they provide something, they recommend something that would fill this position. So if we're gonna keep this saldo, and we're gonna continue to try to enforce it, we have to have something that we can operate within and
Okay, the
Provide.
planning commission thing, I don't think is overly hard, because we could just strike that and make it planning committee, which is what we became whenever we did away with the
and
planning.
you can, but are you guys able to provide the services as required in the saldo?
Yeah, I don't
The
know.
consultation, exactly. So another thing that's provided for under the municipal planning code either in conjunction with or in substitution of, is a planning department, or, I don't think they actually call it a planning officer, but if you'll pardon my ignorance in the terms,
Says planning department.
planning department, yeah, with an official in charge of it.
That's all right.
Yeah, So, I mean, there are other options. Hold on one second. There are planning agencies, which you could either can include either or both a planning commission, planning department with a planning department director. I mean, it's up to you guys, but it's only responsible to have something in place. But that requires ordinance. Even to reestablish a planning commission, I believe, requires ordinance, but that the solicitor will have to speak to that, I'm not positive. But I think this is something, I don't think, if you appoint somebody, they can review the saldo and see what, and come back to you guys with recommendations. Or Pete suggested perhaps even appointing an exploratory committee or something, I forget, you used task.
Yeah,
force.
so, I mean, look, basically, I think what John's getting at is that in us trying to, 'cause so what you guys have at this point, which is, I've talked to Kathy about this a little bit, in our world, we only pretty much operate in traditional zoning and saldo operations, okay? Because that's what pretty much everybody else has. So in our minds, for doing that day-to-day job, that's the way our brains work. Because that's what we see most of the time. You guys are a little different in that you guys just have basically a bunch of standalone ordinances that we have to go through in order to do the job, to make sure you guys are meeting. Any applicant, in this particular last case, we were running into the land development and whether they kicked into that or not. So basically, we have to go down through those three: floodplain ordinance, land development ordinance, and we have to kind of make sure that sometimes they step on each other, and as John pointed out, when it refers to a body that you guys don't have, I mean, how do we handle that? So there's a lot of little things. So my suggestion was, there needs to be some changes because there's conflicting information there. And I think that it might be a good idea to get kind of an exploratory body. You could speak to what's allowed under the Sunshine Act, I'm not exactly sure. I know there's probably some issues with everybody meeting at different times. But I think an exploratory type committee or something like that, I think you guys, again, it's a solicitor's purview, but you guys have the ability to kind of do and appoint some kind of exploratory committee on a semi-permanent, a temporary basis to kind of go through and check off all these things that are causing us problems. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we're finding some problems that can certainly be really problematic. Some of the definitions in the saldo that we have to make people fall under would be a very simple thing before they gotta go to the saldo. And the saldo is meant to be, again, keep in mind, in a traditional zoning situation, you have your traditional zoning map with all this different stuff, and it usually points you when to go to the saldo, because what the saldo does, it becomes a much more constraining document. It's usually meant to be when you got a big type of development, and it's too big for the simplified version of the day-to-day zoning, you kick into the saldo. And then that spells out like a subdivision, like you guys have all been up in the Washington area, where they have these housing plans, where the houses are set every 25 feet or 10 feet apart, and that's all done in planning and through the saldo and the land development. It's usually spelled out there, and that's where they pull the developers' agreements and stuff out of. So, since you don't have that, and that's fine, it doesn't matter whether you do or you don't, it's just a matter of making what you do have kind of as seamless as you can make it. And to one example, we were talking about, under the definition of a saldo, if it's taken literally by the definition, I think it's on the first, what page is that on for that guy?
Yeah, under definitions, under land development,
Yeah,
if you, it's gonna be 110, 7, I think.
6.
6, yeah, land development. If you read the definition of land development, I'll give you a second to go ahead and look at it. Okay, so just as an example, we'll use Union Township, it was right here someplace. Union Township's saldo says the improvement are one or two more contiguous lots or tracts, parcels of land for any purpose involving a group of two or more residential or non-residential buildings, whether proposed initially or cumulatively. B, a single non-residential building on a lot or lots regardless of the number of occupants or tenure, including any change of use or structural alteration or other improvement to the land which results in additional land coverage by structures and/or paving or construction of stormwater management facilities. Or C, the division or allocation of land or space, whether initially or cumulatively between or among two or more existing prospective occupants by means or for the purposes of streets, common areas, leaseholds, condominiums, building groups. I don't expect you to remember all that. Okay, so here's where the difference comes in. These have uses and definitions. Residential, non-residential. Ours says two buildings. So,
Yeah, why don't you read ours too? Because
the,
ours, because you read Union's example, but.
yeah, okay, ours, let's go back to ours. The improvement are one or more, or one lot or two or more contiguous lots, tracts or parcels of land for any purpose involving a group of two or more buildings, or the division or allocation of land or space between among two or more existing prospective occupants, so on, so on. Here's where the difference, here's where I interpret the difference to be, is there are, by definition, in the other definitions I've read, they exempt accessory structures, agricultural buildings. Our saldo, by definition, is two or more buildings. So if you own a house and you want to put up a detached garage, you fall under our saldo. If you have a farm and you want to put up a barn, even though an agricultural building is, what's the proper term, exempt
It's
or?
exempt from the
Except-
UCC, yeah.
Yeah, it's still more than one building on one tract of land, therefore it falls by definition under our saldo. Yeah, I don't think that was the intent when it was, I think.
I absolutely think it was the intent. They did this to get, out on the ridge here, Chuck Mann.
Okay, so,
Well,
okay,
the language in this saldo is from 1987.
okay, let's just leave it in its
But the
non,
the current definition of the state planning code, I believe, is probably what you just read.
that
Or
it's very
pretty
similar.
much.
It's pretty cool.
Right,
Yeah.
let's leave out what their intent was, let's talk about our intent. So I don't think it's our intent that Tom has to go fall under our saldo and submit plans and stormwater plans and this and that, to throw up a three-sided shed for his cows, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I know that's not what we want, but the problem is, if we're gonna abide by our ordinance,
Yeah, it's not about what, if that's your intent, and you want every building that's an accessory structure, then leave it the way it is.
My
here's the
intent
problem
is
with that
I'm-
though.
Let's just for fun pretend we live in a free country.
Well, listen, I'm not for 1 minute advocating any of that.
Right.
And I know that you guys have had issues with that before, but what I'm saying is the stuff that you have in writing that's enforceable today means that anybody that puts a second building on top of their property gets kicked into that saldo. And if that's not what you want, then you either
Then we have
eliminate
to
the
fix
whole
it.
thing or change the definition.
But if I have 10 acres and I wanna build a Dollar General, I don't fall under your saldo.
Yeah, there's another contradiction. So I think, listen, that definition, or your original ordinance that you said was from '86, it's not uncommon to what we see otherwise, except for that the definition's a little simplified from, it's been updated over the years. So I just think it's time for you guys to update your definition to whatever you guys want it to do and say. I think, at least I would say that if that's what you want to do, then you fix that definition to cover what you guys want to see in your township. That's what all of this is for. But you don't want it to say what it says, which basically means any second building gotta go to the saldo. Because that saldo is meant to be more restrictive for a larger land development, like a compressor station or like a PRD. It's meant to put the tighter restrictions so that you're not causing undue harm on everybody else.
And if this will help with the larger developments, you know, when DEP comes in, if you have less than an acre, you don't have to turn into DEP. But when you get into bigger developments, you have the stormwater and all this stuff. And you can interchange the word site plan and land development. So do you want a site plan and a land development for a house? Do you want a site plan and a land development for a garage?
Yeah,
the thing
that's exactly
sticking
right,
out.
because once you get kicked into that, now you have to meet the site plan things, which means if you're in the Saldo, you gotta come back with a survey. All the site, the land development, you gotta go through the county DEP. If they may exempt you for, like Harold's talking about, if it's less than an acre, fine, but if you got a 10-acre lot, then you're not exempted. So there's all kinds of things that I don't believe it was the intent, to kick everybody into the Saldo. And it's a pretty simple fix. However, we found other kind of possible contradictions. That's why I said, get a group of people together to kind of look through where it contradicts itself, what definitions might need to be changed and updated to what you guys want it to do, and then have them bring back something to you to say, look, we think we straightened it all out. Because really the reason why we're sitting here today is because it causes us a lot of problems. We're the kind of boots on the ground guys that are, like, I can't give this guy a building permit until you guys tell me what you want to do with your Saldo, or we make them go through the Saldo. This guy's knocking on Sharon's window saying, I'm ready for my permit, and I'm like, I can't do it yet, until we figure it out. So I think there's some issues that you need to fix and simplify the process, and then, go ahead.
But we need a vehicle to do that.
Right.
And I think it's too restrictive for the board, by definition, to sit here and, you know, maybe that's presumptuous of me, but I think for the type of conversations that need to be had, and to go through this, either a group appointed by you guys on a temporary basis, or a planning commission that's the first task is tasked to redo the South. Whatever it is, there has to be something, because, I mean, it's not really, I mean, we're gonna run across times when it's not enforceable.
Okay.
Yeah, and listen, I respect your point about being free. Like, I wish everybody would be, you know, that we didn't have to have any rules, but we do. And so, the sad part about it is, there's the floodplain management ordinance, you guys don't have a choice, you have to have that. It's not like you can eliminate that. You might be able to throw your Saldo out if you wanted to, and say, well, we don't need all those rules either. But you can't do, there's federally mandated ones, and there's state mandated ones, there's even county mandated ones that you can't throw out. You are required to have them, so you're gonna have some. At least the ones the upper people tell you have to have, so I
If we're
mean.
gonna have rules, we should be responsible with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we're getting at. I'm not driving for more rules, I'm just telling you that please make it easier on us to enforce the ones you guys got.
Okay, so, a subcommittee,
Mr. Hofrichter, have you ever,
I have not done that, but a subcommittee or a committee sounds like what you want. I mean, and they're gonna have to have planning meetings and open meetings and all that.
and it would probably, so, not to exclude the board, but would you wanna limit the number of board members that sit on it? I mean, you could have 2 board members on it, but 3 would be
It
more.
wouldn't change the legality of advertising and so forth for it. You still have to, the committee still has to meet the requirements of the Sunshine Act.
Okay.
Again, I'm just, my 2 cents, but I'm thinking you guys, your first probably decision is whether you want to put together and reestablish some type of planning commission, or do you want to just do with the subcommittee that would, that I guess they can do away with after. Again, defer, but you guys got to make that decision. If a planning commission, and I wasn't here when that all went down, so I don't know the ups and downs of it, but I'll say this, in a lot of our other townships, if we brought this to the board, that'd probably be the first thing they'd do, would say, okay, let's have the planning commission look at that and come back with a recommendation. That would be the answer. Now, you guys don't have that, so I think that's your decision.
We don't, so to establish one, it would require an ordinance and it would take longer. And you guys feel that the quicker we move on this, the better off?
Absolutely. Do you understand what she's explaining? Okay, so to actually.
Was it, would it require ordinance, that would be a question.
We'd have to have an
Yeah, it
ordinance
requires
to
an ordinance,
establish.
and it would take longer to do the ordinance to reestablish, so a subcommittee per se
Ordinance doesn't take very long.
would be
Because you-
quicker.
Because you abolished it, because you already had it on the.
Yes,
books,
we had
you
it
just
and
have
then we
to go back
abolished
and do
it, so now we have to do it again. So that would take longer.
What about both?
Well, does the planning commission, well, I don't know, that's a solicitor question. That's on the NPC, I'm sure it tells you how to do it, right?
Yeah, there's all kinds of rules.
I'm not sure that the simple ordinance undoes this document either.
Well, I don't know that we're trying to undo.
I'm just saying, I think it takes a process and a procedure.
No, they're definitely gonna have to have meetings.
And I'm gonna add that, that's why you would want to have a body look at all the things. Because we just threw one example of this, the two buildings to change that definition. But there's other things, so you'd wanna do them, if you're gonna change the ordinance or add definitions, or you wanna put them all together. So you only gotta do one advertising and one change of the ordinance with all of those changes instead of doing it one at a time, because then you gotta advertise and go through the whole process every time. So that's why I came up with however you recommending body or, putting together something together to.
I've been saying for a long time that this thing needs to be reviewed. And I think maybe Rick may have been here way back when this thing was first developed, it was done in a hurry. Washington County, this was Washington County's ordinance.
It still says county in it.
In place, you'll see what it says the county where it should say the township, and that's the original version of it. It was done in a hurry, and because they, like Ed said,
Mandated.
had a guy out on the ridge that was doing a development that they wanted to have some control over.
Which is always a danger when you target legislation at one person.
And we ended up in